That's exactly what I would be too.
All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Derry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's going on, Cody?
Oh, I'm trying to set a record for most colds in a rolling 30-day period, I think. So
my allergies are blowing up, so we are a hot mess right now. So this should be a good episode.
Enjoy this sniveling hot mess of an episode.
I don't. Did you have allergies growing up?
No, very rarely.
I had a grass allergy growing up, and fall and spring soccer, baseball seasons. It was every day was a nightmare. Like itchy eyes, scratchy throat. So it's gotten a little bit better, but for something's blooming now in Las Vegas, and I'm just dying right now. But anyways, that's the status of Cody and I's current ailments. Stay tuned for further updates.
That is just a snippet of my ailments, man. I mean,
that's just a taste.
We could do a
10-part series.
Yeah, 10-part series on my ailments. I'll tell you what.
So let's go ahead and dive in here. We have a winner of our Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. The winner this week is Walter D. from Carmel, Indiana. And I don't know where Carmel is. I would assume it's somewhere near Indianapolis, but I assume everything is near Indianapolis.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know where Carmel, California is, but I don't know where that is.
So. Anyways, we'll figure it out. We'll work with the post office and figure out where your address is, so we can send you a Country Shore hat and free copies of our ebooks. So keep an eye out for that. Walter and anyone who didn't win this week can hop on our Facebook page and enter the Country Shore giveaway. And while you're on our Facebook page, you can answer our question of the week, which this past week was, are you going to use Apple's new physical credit card? And 6 out of 7 Facebook users agree, absolutely not. Which I can't say is that surprising.
I don't know. I don't know why you would. I just want to carry no credit cards. That's what I want. I don't want to carry one credit card. I want to carry no credit cards.
You know what's interesting too? I saw an article that said Apple is touting all of these advancements that the credit card is introducing. Their credit card is introducing, such as not having the number physically on the credit card. But then the point of the article was, most banks are now doing that. You have the option of ordering a credit card with a virtual credit card number. So Apple, we actually just got in a debate about marketing and sort of not necessarily fake marketing, but marketing that doesn't necessarily tell 100% of the truth like Apple just did, which is basically, we're the only ones you can get a credit card with no number on, when in fact that's not actually the case. So we'll see if that plays.
It'll play like a lead balloon, I'm sure. It's just I don't know. Apple it's weird because they haven't released anything innovative in a long time. I mean, their watch was not innovative. The iPad was not innovative.
The touch bar at the top of MacBooks is functionally useless
and breaks all the time. So it's weird.
Butterfly keys too. Butterfly keys are apparently a nightmare. If you get like one little chunk of dust underneath them, they either lock up or you can't actually push the key. I think they've started offering 4-year warranties on Butterfly keyboards now.
The movie Butterfly Effect was a train wreck too, so it kind of maybe just goes with the theme.
Coincidence?
Yeah,
I think not.
I don't think so. Who was that? Ashton Kutcher? Wasn't that who was in that movie?
It was Ashton Kutcher, and I can't remember anyone else in it. It was kind of a good movie. It was a cool premise.
I saw the alternate ending, which I didn't realize I was watching the alternate ending, and something happens where it's just like it's awful. Everyone's life ends up being ruined, and it's just a disaster. And I was like, what in the world did I just watch? And it ended up being the alternate ending, and I didn't know I was watching the alternate ending. It was really, really weird.
I gotta say though, I think The Simpsons did it better. Do you remember that Treehouse of Horror episode where Homer kept going back in time and screwing up? Like at one point he was just like, he was trying not to touch anything in prehistoric, I think it was like dinosaur times or something like that. And then at one point he just starts stomping on like every creature you can see and like punches a dinosaur.
Yes, that is.
And then he comes back, and I think it's like he's fabulously wealthy, and he's sitting at a table, and he's like, "Do we have any donuts?" And Marge's like, "What are donuts?" And he screams, and he runs back into the teleporter, and then it starts raining donuts, and they're like, "Oh, look, it's raining again."
That's right. He's got everything he ever wanted, and
and he bailed. And then at the very end, he comes back to his normal family, and they start eating, but they have lizard tongues, and they're eating with their lizard tongues. He's like, yeah, close enough.
Yeah, that's good. That'll work. So good.
So awesome. I miss good Simpsons, man. But the question of the week this week is, are you excited for 5G? And your options are, I can't even remember what the option is for yes, but the option, speaking of Simpsons, is actually a Simpsons gif of Bart and Lisa saying meh.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if people are excited for 5G.
I mean, at least it's an actual upgrade. I mean, that's not saying much because who knows what's going to happen, but at least it's like actually something different than just the form factor of the phone kind of thing.
I'm not excited for the nasty 5G towers that are going to go up everywhere.
Oh, do they have to put up new towers?
They
They
have to
can't
put
just
up
use
all
the.
kinds of new towers, and they're giant, and they have to put them up, I think, more frequently,
Mm,
or
mm,
more, less spaced out. So there's just going to be
mm.
like a sea of 5G towers around in every city now.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's a
I'm
bummer.
excited for the conspiracy theories about how 5G causes cancer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I did read though that Apple is probably not going to be ready for um, 5G on their iPhone until after 2020. So that's just going to be another year that I go with trying to squeeze another year out of my iPhone.
Yeah, isn't it because of Intel? The chip isn't going to support 5G.
Right, exactly. Which, come on, man, it's what you do. Just
Step it up.
yep, step it up. They're gonna focus on their credit card. So
I'm going to see. Right. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to see how long I can keep my 5S. I'm still
which apparently
rocking.
it's just is the so I have a truck with a 7.3 engine in it, which is just you can't get a 7.3 engine anymore because they're not they don't they won't pass certification anymore for diesel engines.
Oh, okay.
But apparently, like a 7.3 engine will just last forever, and people want them so badly, but you can't get them. And so it actually makes the years that had them were like this model 7.3 actually was like 98 to like 2003, I think. And so those years trucks are like more expensive than the next 4 or 5 years afterward because they have
Oh,
the
no
7.3
way. Just
engine.
because they have the 7.3 engine.
Yeah, so I have the 7.3 in mine, and I'm well on my way to 400,000 miles on that thing. So
Good Lord.
yeah,
What a
yeah. So
beast. We should
that
just
thing's
stock up on 7.3 engines. Just
totally
fill a warehouse with them.
when everything goes to pot and it's like post-apocalyptic, and you see those like energies running on diesel engines from cars. It's gonna
Yeah.
be 7.3, and I'm gonna be all set.
You'd just be sitting pretty in the post-apocalyptic
That's right.
wasteland.
That's right.
I'm thinking of stocking up on 5S's too, just because I'm nervous that they're
Well,
just
yeah,
not there's not going to be any available.
yeah. That was my point. Is like the 5 is like
Or actually
the
6 too. I think the
7.3.
6 SE is pretty good too.
Yeah, so those two models are like the 7.3s of iPhones.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopping on eBay now and putting in a bunch of bids. But before I do that, actually, let's go ahead and get into our episode, which the topic du jour is setting up your organization for React and serverless development. So I guess maybe talk about what tools you use to set up your organization first.
So we have a script that does it for you, which is nice because it can be kind of a pain in the butt to do manually. And so we talked about this a little bit last week about scripting stuff rather than doing it through a GUI. But so we script stuff, and which makes it easier. But what's more important about this great setup we have is that it kind of forces you to follow Amazon's paradigm. And AWS basically says, like for us, being a organization, being a company that builds software for other companies, this is how they say to set it up. So you have what's called a root organization. And then under the root organization, you have your clients. So let's say like one of our new clients, Floribama. Shout out to Floribama in the Panhandle. We're
Hell
coming
yeah.
up there. We're coming up there for the mullet toss. So you would have under your root organization, you would have what's called an organizational unit called Floribama. And then under Floribama, you would have an account, an AWS account for each project and each environment for each project. So for example, for Floribama, we're just releasing an app to help them coordinate the status of their musical stages. Like, is there someone playing? Is there someone going on break, or are they on break, kind of thing? And so we call it, for lack of imagination, stage coordinator. So again, you have that root organization, and then under the root organization, you have the client, which is called an organizational unit, Floribama. And then under Floribama, we have stage coordinator development, stage coordinator staging, and stage coordinator production.
And what are the benefits of doing it that way, as opposed to just having it all within one organization?
Yeah. So the big benefit is security, and kind of ease of structuring and permissions, but security is the big one. So let's first look at the stages. So you have development, which is kind of like the Wild West. You're trying new stuff. You're actively in development. You haven't even figured stuff out yet. So the way AWS separates stuff in in a security model is by what has access to certain things. And if you have your development project in the same account as your production um, project, there's a good chance that you may accidentally give your development project access to uh, certain parts of your production project. So if you're using, say, DynamoDB for your primary data store, if you have both of your projects in one account, you actually have to make sure that you give development only access to certain tables within DynamoDB. When you separate it by account, you're just like, here, project, you have access to all DynamoDB tables. You don't have to worry about being meticulous about you have access to this, but not this kind of thing. So, you can imagine in development, you're doing new stuff. So you could accidentally do something where you delete all of your records out of a DynamoDB table or all tables. And when you're separated accounts, you would actually have to try very hard to make that possible instead of just kind of having it happen by mistake. And you can give your individual developers, like if you have a junior developer, you can give them full access to the development environment, but not access to the staging or production environment. So they can't even if they were like being malicious, even if they were like NPM employees, shout out to that big controversy that's going on now. They couldn't get angry and sort of wreak havoc on the staging and production accounts.
And stay tuned. We might do a quick 2 minutes in tech episode about the NPM controversy. So I guess separation of concerns is a big reason to use organizations. Does it make billing easier, or?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, so for all new accounts, you get you get the free trial period, or what do they call it? The free tier. You're free tier eligible for, I think, like a year. I don't remember how long free tier eligibility lasts, but it's a good long while. And so while you're in that period, as long as you're using stuff that are on the free tier, it's free, obviously. So when you start new accounts, you basically can get that free tier eligibility 3 times over. And excuse me, when you do new projects, same thing. So again, we talked about this one stage coordinator for Floribama, but if we were to do something different, another project for them, we would start 3 new accounts for that project. And so again, those 3 new accounts become free tier eligible as well. So the billing goes down as well significantly based on that.
So how do you work with that many different organizations as far as day-to-day development goes?
Yeah, so that's the other thing that I'll get more into in kind of our side episode on this stuff. But we have a methodology where it's basically like everything is separated by Git. So we have each developer has their own branch. So I have like a Cody branch. And then when I push my Cody branch, I push it to development, and then the development environment automatically runs the Cody branch. And same thing with like staging. There's a staging branch. And when I push the staging branch, it automatically pushes it to the staging account. And then the staging account runs the staging code. And same thing for production. It's on the master branch. You push the master branch, and it automatically pushes to the production repo. And then the production environment runs the production code. So it makes management a lot easier. And then we have same thing for our backend. We have just a command line where it's SLS deploy production, SLS deploy staging, SLS deploy development, and it deploys the backend to the appropriate account. And so behind the scenes, the developer really doesn't ever know or care that there's three different accounts, which is the big win, because that's the big pain that people describe with this setup, is switching between accounts. But the way we've done it is you don't even realize you're switching between accounts.
And I guess in terms of not even realizing you're switching between accounts and managing teams who are working on all these different projects, how do you manage user access within all of these organizations? What's the recommended way of doing that?
Yeah, so basically what our setup script does is it AWS has a service called IAM, and that's how they basically use that's how they verify access to resources. And so the sub account that gets created is associated with the root account. So the root account can then, it has like what's called an account role, or an account role with the child account. Then in the root account, we create what's called a group, and then that group will be called like Florabama admins, and then we put users, or it would be like Florabama development admins, Florabama staging admins, Florabama production admins. So 3 groups, and then we put the users who belong in each of those groups into that group. So like I said, if you have a junior developer, you may want them to be in that development group, but not in the staging or production group. And so then that group gets what's called a policy, and that policy allows them to what's called assume the role of the account which has access to the child account. It sounds a little complicated, and it is, which is why I said you don't want to be setting this up by hand. But in that way, we organize who has access on our team by who's in that group. So same thing, an employee leaves, all we do is remove them from the groups that they're in, and they have no access to anything at that point.
So I guess from a security perspective, that's a huge win, because it just makes it drop dead simple to revoke access sort of as needed.
Right, exactly. It's because we have so many projects. I mean, we probably have hundreds of projects, and so managing the security on each of those without a really good model would be damn near impossible.
From the client perspective, do organizations add any benefit other than the added security that you get and the ease of billing?
Well, yes, they do actually, because the benefit to the client is, number one, cost savings. We pass the cost savings on to them. But number two is portability. So if for whatever reason they want to like bring this in house and not use Gunner Technology and host everything themselves, all you do is transfer the account to them. It's like one button that they create a new root account, and then you go into their account on our end, and one button transfer it to their as an organizational unit to their new account, and then they own it, and that's it. The portability of it is a huge win as well.
We've got a question here that you might have answered already. But the question is, how do I get started using organizations on AWS? And I guess step one would be watching the companion video to this live stream.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to learn more about organizations, just Google AWS organizations, and there's like a brief video that they came from AWS, like how they work for. And again, we're using it in a certain way, but there's also another benefit. Like if we were, let's say, if Gunner Technology were a giant hospital, we would still use AWS organizations, but we'd have like instead of our organizational units being our clients, our organizational units would be like billing, HR, IT. You know, we'd have a organizational unit for each actual organizational unit, and then inside of theirs we would have separate accounts for every project. So depending on your use case, you may use AWS organizations differently. We're describing it from a standpoint of you have multiple clients kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess the knowledge transfer to Azure or Google Cloud is still worthwhile, because organizations, as I understand it, works pretty similarly on those platforms as well.
Yeah, and again, I don't have as much experience with Azure or Google Cloud, and again, the technologies that you use may make that a bit difficult. We use serverless framework, which does attempt to make the portability between the services as seamless as possible. But yeah, so you could definitely then transfer an AWS organization into the equivalent of whatever Google Cloud has or Microsoft Azure has.
That's actually a good segue into talking about how serverless interacts with these organizations. What are the benefits you get for working with serverless and potentially even React when you use organizations like we do?
Yeah, well, again, the billing is a big one because serverless, you're billed based on a per request level, and so everything we're using in the serverless stack, DynamoDB, Lambda, SNS, SQS, all of this serverless managed stuff is free tier eligible. So that is the big win for the excuse me, the organizations. And the serverless model is that everything is free tier eligible. From a front end standpoint, the React so React plays nicely with what's called AWS Amplify, and Amplify is basically a Git push deployment. So I was talking about Git pushing earlier, and so you push your code to a AWS repo, and Amplify notices that you push changes to the repo and automatically pushes out a new front end for your React client. That's a huge win. It takes care of building. It takes snapshots, previews of the builds, and it does everything for you. From the React Native angle, we use Expo, and Expo has, we've talked about this before, OTA updates. So it's very easy just to be like Expo publish staging, which then pushes a new version to the staging application kind of thing. So that's the huge benefit of the serverless kind of integration with organizations.
So I guess in conclusion, using organizations is a huge win. There's really no reason not to do it.
Right. And again, using organizations in the way we described it is an official AWS best practice. When you take their certification exams, they ask you questions on this, and splitting up by organizations is their preferred way, mainly because of the security implications from it. And it really is, obviously there's always potential for opening up security flaws. I will say one thing I forgot from the security standpoint. When you do it this way, because we've talked about this ad nauseum, one of the biggest flaws in a security model is the password, right? Because you can't help if someone leaks their password or doesn't put in a strong. You can sometimes mitigate putting in a strong password, but with the new accounts that are set up, the new sub accounts that are set up, there's actually no account with a password. So not only you would have to get, say, my username and password for my root account, and then figure out how to assume the role of the child account in order to get in there into the child account. So it makes it that much harder and much harder to get into the system, and much more easier to manage the security, because you're not worried about rotating passwords or rotating 100 different passwords and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess you'd even need some way to get past the two-factor authentication, right? To even log in to that root account.
Exactly. So if you have multi-factor auth turned on your root account, and you're using this role-based system for the child accounts, you don't really have to worry about like an employee losing their password or accidentally putting in a GitHub repo and it getting leaked out.
It would be several usernames and several passwords deep to get into that account.
It would, yeah. If the root account, if my username for the root account got leaked, they would have to be able to log in with the password, somehow compromise my MFA on my phone, and then even if they did that, they would have access to the root account. But we don't keep anything in the root account. We have nothing in the root account. So then they would have to figure out what organizations are below us, and then figure out how to assume the role of one of those accounts and get into those accounts and then start deleting stuff, kind of thing.
So it's,
it adds a lot more complication. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Definitely check out the companion episode, which will be posted shortly, about how to set up organizations for serverless and React development.
I think that should already be up. That should already be up. Actually.
Well, there you go. Check out the episode that is currently up. We'll link it in the description below. So you can definitely check that out and start using organizations with your AWS setup. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Hop on our Facebook page and answer the question of the week, which this week is, are you excited for 5G? And also, while you're on our Facebook page, enter the Country Store giveaway. Country Store, again, is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. The blog post for this episode will be available at gunnertech.com. The podcast will be on iTunes. Check out our ebooks on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. And make sure to catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.